So Kyle, why did you get into archery? There's probably a lot of reasons or answers to that question. However, there's a lot of physicality and there's a lot of mental capacity required for archery that I've found so far in my months that I've been doing it for. What I mean by that is you get rusty very quickly. There's so much to learn, so much to dive into, and I can see this being something I'll do for years and still never truly master. And so the actual shot itself, there's so many little layers and details that you get to focus on, and that to me is exciting because you can never focus on them all. You have to focus on one little thing each time. Is my bow properly level? Am I holding the grip correctly so I'm not going to torque it or twist the bow? Am I pressing on the release correctly and putting the right tension so it's releasing? Like each shot you kind of focus on one of these things until you hopefully hone that in to where it's now muscle memory. You don't have to think about it. Just take releases for example. So this is a trigger release and this is what I just switched to recently, which is a thumb release. So these are just two different ways to basically fire the bow. One straps to your wrist, you pull this, that releases the string. Technically, you should put this back and pull, and pulling on that releases it. That's not necessarily how I was shooting it, and I think a lot of people with trigger releases are probably just pulling the trigger. You see it lined up, boom, clips in, it's now attached. This is nice, especially for beginners. Like there's no way to let this fly, anything happens. You pull back, you do not pull back with your finger in front of the trigger. You aim, you keep pulling back. Aiming is very similar. My peep is very twisted right now. And place your finger on the trigger when you want to shoot and let it rip. Now the reason a lot of people will switch is a thing called target panic, trigger panic. I think it's target panic. Basically, as your arrow is hovering and moving around the object and you're aiming down scope, you are going to jerk because you think it's going to fire and you're going to pull and it might not fire exactly when you want to. And so by you jerking, it's going to hit over here instead of where you want it to. That's why a lot of people will use a hinge release, other releases out there. So what they're actually meant to do is made to kind of not let the user know exactly when they're going to go off, which sounds counterintuitive, right? You're about to shoot an arrow, and when you get into use cases of like hunting and even targets, when you see it's dead centered, you want it to fire. The reality is your brain and the reaction of just trying to hold it steady on that target is better than actually hard pulling it, which can cause you to jerk, which can cause movement. Like trust your instincts and just kind of let it float, and eventually it's going to fire off. Sounds counterintuitive. I've tested it and I'm still semi-skeptical, but I have seen tighter groupings when I use the thumb over the trigger. This just feels a little bit more controlled. I like the fact that it just kind of rests in all your fingers. The thumb, everything just executes very nicely. So I do like the thumb release. However, these are very reliable, tried and true. Great way to start. So that little 1 minute spiel of just releases, like that's one aspect. There's tons of different types of buttons, hinge, and trigger releases too. Like I just want to show you the complexities. So you've got D loops, I've learned to tie. You've got peeps you can learn to tie. Where you place the peep on it, how you aim. Different sights. Do you want 5 pins? Do you want 1 pin? I've actually even started making my own arrows, which I'm going to do a video on. So I put all the fletchings on here. I cut the arrows. I chose what tips I needed to go on the end. There's just so many layers and so much fun of things you can learn about archery. And at the end of the day, it's a skill. It's a physical skill. It's a mental skill. It's something that takes a lot of practice, a lot of patience. But when I'm at these beautiful camp spots, I'm going to show you guys where that one hit. It feels good. It feels good when you hit dead bullseye. When you've been practicing, when you started out barely being able to hit stuff appropriately, and then you come back, and I'm doing this intentionally as one continuous shot, and this is 20 yards. This is not the farthest, but that feels good. I'm happy that I've been working on this almost daily for the last month, and now I'm able to achieve that. But here's the fun thing, right? So I just nailed that middle target. That only matters in that shot. My next shot resets the entire gamut. So you end up kind of focusing on these little macro events with each of your shots until you start to master each of them. And then it becomes second nature. You draw the bow back, you're holding it back, brain's not even thinking about it. Hey, I can see my bubble. Is it level? Okay, now we're level. Okay, put your hand on the release. Start to execute the release. Hold your breath. Hopefully equating to the perfect shot. But there's always something new with each shot that you can kind of focus on and hone in on and tweak and just make that much better. So for me, that's exciting because, oh man, I just pulled the release perfectly, but shoot, I was off. I might not be level out front. I might be gripping the bow wrong. And so it's this constant evolution of tweaking and focusing and what are you doing until hopefully it mostly becomes second nature. If you think about a golf swing, if you think about swinging a baseball bat, very similar mentalities with a lot of these in different sports and different things is you kind of got to focus on, okay, where are my hips? What's this doing? What's that doing? Where are my feet? What's my stance? And that's to me what's fun, because while you gain over here, you might be falling over here. And so you start to focus over there. And then it's this constant evolution of your shot and execution of the shot. And it's fun. It's a lot of fun to dive into all those little nuances and focus on different things, because it sounds like, you just shoot a bow. There's so much more to it than that. It gets so exciting when you hear that noise. You start to recognize the noise of when you've hit arrows, which is also bad because you can do damage to them. And this is not a Robin Hood, but sadly, I'm down to 2 arrows because I just ruined a fletch, and I did this the other day. So while they're close, this actually passed through the fletch on here. I would encourage anyone, if you have a local archery range, if you have a way to go try this out, test it, go for it. It's definitely a lot of fun for me. I've really been enjoying it. And I just want to recommend it to all you out there. I will be doing some future content on this, how I make my arrows, anything else I can think of, maybe how to tie a peep. There's a lot of videos out there. There's a lot of great people. That's how I've been learning about this. YouTube's such a cool tool. Any questions? Again, I am very much a beginner in the world of archery. Been in it a few months, but yeah, happy to offer any feedback, suggestions, questions, comments, whatever below. Hit that thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe, see more, and I'll see you next time.